Just picking up the story from where Hema left it, volume guarantees for drugs and diagnostics have been a critical tool to really drive innovation in low and middle income countries. For a variety of reasons, one to do with income levels, availability of funding in public health, new products or better products don't necessarily rise to the top and become procured and selected in low and middle income countries. And in many cases, we've talked about how the public health markets can't really pay for innovation. So we need tools and approaches that will drive the most innovative, appropriate products into the market at scale. And volume guarantees have been a critical device in getting this type of innovation to happen. The numbers are fairly dramatic. We've got here a chart for the long-acting reversible contraceptives and also for the standard of care in HIV, TLD, from introduction and volume guarantee to current data. So you can see here's a device that can drive innovation not just in pilot programs or in one country or in two countries, but can bring it across a much broader terrain. And it's been a super valuable tool when working with manufacturers who are confronted with the challenges that Hema talked about of how do I bring my product to 100 diverse countries with different regulatory systems, potentially not having budgetary visibility on what they might spend each year, and the investment needed by a manufacturer to try to figure out where to go in that market. So I think as a tool for innovation, it's been really successful. When we look at the situation prior to the agreement with Hologic, so going back 5 years and thinking about PCR diagnostics, a couple of difficulties were there. The complex supply chains, hidden costs, suboptimal service and maintenance, and inflexible contracts. Now, we're putting that out there not to be critical of the companies and the procurement groups that were there at the time. It's just the system that had evolved for PCR testing when it was relatively new in developing countries. And from a user point of view, from a laboratory manager side, it created a bit of a nightmare in trying to keep in stock all the right reagents, to be able to plan ahead for how much budgetary resource you would need, not only for reagents, but for service and maintenance, and to have a more forecasted approach of what will your needs be 12 and 18 months out, because equipment, a single piece of equipment can be used for 5 or 6 years, at least in a laboratory. The Hologic-Med Access volume guarantee went beyond setting sort of a new price for viral load testing. It was quite a complicated document in terms of specifying a set of KPIs and a set of conditions that came along with the placement of the instrument. And this equipment is valued in the several hundred, 150,000? 150,000, okay. So for Hologic to agree to place that at no cost and to keep it up and running for a number of years required not only that the laboratory prepare a number of things, but also that the whole system, get together and agree on KPIs and what was the expectation on instrument uptime, where should reagents be delivered, who's responsible for clearing customs, a host of issues that led to a contract that is a lot easier to manage for the public health system and the lab managers, with Hologic taking on, I believe, the full responsibility in many cases for delivering the reagents to the laboratory site, as well as full responsibility for service and maintenance. Now, it's not this contract alone that has led to the massive expansion of viral load testing to the benefit of patients over the last 5 or 6 years. However, I do think it's fair to say that this type of contract gave funders and program managers the type of confidence to shift from using CD4 testing to monitor HIV patients to viral load. And we've seen an expansion of more than a doubling in size of the viral load testing market from a pretty significant base over the time of this volume guarantee. And I think some of that clearly is due to the ease of use of these new types of contract mechanisms. Probably the most significant impact on the whole industry of molecular testing has come from the movement that PEPFAR adopted starting with its negotiations with Hologic, but then expanding it to all procurement for viral load testing, in which they switched to what they call an all-inclusive transparent contract, where manufacturers now have to provide bids for each country for all of the components of the service and product offering, and then those are bundled together in a favorable way. So the agreement between, first of all, Hologic, Chai, and MedAccess allowed that contract to take shape and be negotiated in a lot of detail, and then allowed PEPFAR to take a look at, well, how is that working? Can the company really deliver? Can laboratory managers work on KPIs and the reporting and the consultative process that's necessary to make those work? So I think from PEPFAR's approach, it's been a big success. This is adapted from one of their recent presentations. They've realized financial savings. They now are able to monitor centrally 10 key KPIs. They have a third supplier, Hologic, that's in the market to provide more diversity. And efforts are underway to improve and really make greater use of the operational data reporting. So going from really being a one-off contract on a pilot basis supported by CHI and Unitaid and MedAccess to seeing this now impact 60 to 70% of the procurement in the whole industry, that's the kind of impact at scale that CHI likes to see happen. Beyond that, the focus on access programs and all-inclusive pricing has had another effect. Between Roche and Hologic, there are now 92 countries who are available, who can get pricing under a global access plan, and not just for HIV testing. In many cases, this would include other assays as well. So while the viral load testing supported by PEPFAR might be concentrated in 5 or 6 countries, and obviously the high-volume viral load countries, Kenya, South Africa, and so on, are concentrated in sub-Saharan Africa, the impact of this program on pricing and availability of molecular testing has been quite a bit greater. Looking to the future, I think we can see a couple of areas that are already in progress. COVID has added stimulus to this as well as a lot of purchasing power. There's now a greatly expanded footprint of molecular diagnostic equipment and new entrants. The market is now at a scale that companies find it worthwhile to set up the service and maintenance groups that are necessary in low and middle income countries. We've now got 6 or 7 tests available at fairly attractive pricing that can be used on the instruments. And responsibility is being shifted from central procurement groups down to the laboratory level and program management level, and a collaborative relationship established with manufacturers who are taking on a larger role for handling inventory, delivering to site, maintaining equipment, and so on. And this is really felt to be the most effective way to ensure the quality of the testing. You've got to have that collaboration between the vendor and the lab managers. And we see, and we're optimistic about this over the next few years, that the expansion of all-inclusive pricing agreements will come to core laboratory testing, including clinical chemistry and hematology. Let's not forget that HIV patients and many others require a wide range of lab testing, and right now, the other instruments in the lab really don't benefit from the type of program that has now become pretty commonplace for PCR. So thank you. I believe that's the end of the comments I wanted to make. Again, I think it's really fascinating and important to see how innovation can be driven by these types of financial tools and agreements, and probably one of the best ways for manufacturers to consider launching new products or products that may not be new overall, but are not yet widely used in low and middle income countries, and that we can continue to drive that forward over the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you.